there we go. Okay, here we go.
Perfect.
Hello and welcome to Anatomy of Marriage Radio. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
Good morning, my friends. My name is Seth Studley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and welcome to AUM Radio.
Today we are talking about pornography. We got a question sent in by a listener who asked us something very specific about our thoughts on pornography, and she was kind of she was asking
Confused.
a little bit confused, and so we loved the question. We loved that she reached out, and we wanted to clarify our thoughts on that. And as always, our show is brought to you by Get Your Marriage On. You can get the couples counseling app that's quick, fun, and never boring, and we created it. Go to getyourmarriageon.com and check that out. You can get a free 7-day trial, and or have just the free version forever, whatevs. But you do you.
You do you, folks.
And every day on Anatomy of Marriage Radio, we do 4 things. What are those 4 things?
Those 4 things are: we pray, we share gratitude, we share an intention, and then we do the two questions from the questions of the day from the Get Your Marriage On app, the conversation starters. So why don't you pray this morning?
All right. Dear God, thank you so much for all of our blessings. Thank you for this Saturday. Thank you for our family, our healthy kids, our wonderful home, our bodies, our minds, wonderful educators and teachers like Dr. Tina Shermer-Sellers. Just thank you for the abundance of life that you have in this world that we can glean wisdom from and change our own lives with. Thank you, and I pray that this show is helpful to people and it's transformative and help us have an amazing day. Amen.
Amen.
We encourage you to do these things with your partner. Pray together, do your intentions together, do your gratitudes, and then talk about what we talked about today. This is a very small thing that makes a very big difference in the long run.
Yeah, it really does. The small things add up, right?
That's
Pennies turn into dollars, right, Mel?
Sure. I guess they
They
can.
do. That's how money works. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. And so I'm thankful. I think I said this yesterday. I am thankful just the fact that we are married and we're a team that makes stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like kids, obviously. A home, a yard, suppers together, content for one. And then I'm just happy that like we are using 2 of those energies that we have, put them together, and now we're making something. And that's just basically a family.
Yeah.
Right? And overall, it's very good, and I love you, and I'm thankful.
Great. So Seth is doing his gratitudes, which is saying what you're thankful for that your spouse did that day or the day before. And this is going to sound funny compared to what you just said. I'm thankful that when you woke up and found the dog turd by the front door, you cleaned it without any problems.
Oh, well.
I cleaned the one in the living room.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that you weren't mad at the dog, you weren't mad at somebody else.
I am mad at the dog for eating my peppers, but whatever.
That's our own fault.
Yeah, I know.
The dog can't help himself but be attracted to manure in the thing. But anyway,
Okay.
So do the gratitudes with your partner. Say what you're thankful for. Little bits like this go a very long way.
Yeah.
Intentions. Our intentions for the day with our relationship. Do you have a specific intention?
No, I don't, but I will think of one and do it. What's yours?
My intention is to really step up my relational game as far as, and this is going to sound
What does that mean?
weird. I'm getting there. What I think of as, I want to have almost like military discipline level of, like David Goggins, Joshua Willink, Leif Babin discipline in every aspect of our home. I don't want there to be a single element within our family unit, our home, that is not tidy, not intentional, not on purpose, not for a goal, right? So everything from the kids' bedrooms to how I talk to you to our intimacy to everything.
So that's your intention, right?
Yeah, my intention is literally to level up, like on purpose for our marriage and our family. Just to be like, I almost said balls to the wall, but there I said it. I don't know what else to say. Like
I almost
all
said
out.
this thing.
That is my intention. Is like full on.
Yeah.
Just do it. Stop complaining. Be a bad A and do it. And that's my intention. What is yours?
Somebody says, absolutely great content. Thank you, ... This is impacting my life.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a cool name. Thank you very much. We appreciate
Keep on.
that.
What's your intention?
So my intention is to meet you in that, and and here's my other intention. I don't want it to cause conflict. If you have a goal and you assume that I'm going to be up there with military stuff and all this stuff, I may not do that. I can, but I may not do that, and I don't want to get in trouble for it. So my intention is to meet you to that. And I personally have said, okay, these next, it's like a push, because we're going to Nashville, we're going to do awesome things there in like 12 days or something. And I want to like push myself, like, okay, here's the big lean into stuff to get ready. So I intend to do that as well.
And also so just so that you know, it wrapped up in my intention of like...
I'm all about being balls.
I'm glad someone thinks that's okay. But in my intention in sort of militantly leveling up and being whatever, I take extreme ownership in understanding that that is not what you signed up for.
That's right.
So I am not going to put that on you.
Hey,
I am not going to pretend that it was like something you wanted. That's what I used to do in the past. I would pretend my goals were sets, and it ain't cool to do that. So
yeah, I didn't like military, Melanie.
No, Metellany. Anyway,
Yes.
Nutella. Right. So I want you guys to do these with your partner. Pray, do your intentions, do your gratitude, all of those things. It is very helpful.
Okay.
So we're going to dive into the question that we were sent. I edited it a little bit, but it was very concise and very helpful, and I'm thankful that this gal sent it in.
Go ahead and read it. I have to get my other phone for the questions.
Okay. So. It says, "Hi, I am a huge fan of the podcast and y'all, and I have a question. A few episodes back, you were totally set up perfectly to hit on how damaging porn is to relationships. I mean, I agree with most of what y'all said. Purity is not everything, but porn can ruin a lot of things. As Christians, I think we all have the authority to call sin, sin, and purity is God's will, and porn is just lust and sin and so dangerous. Why don't y'all say those things? I wasn't a virgin, nor was my husband when we got married, and I'd choose who... I don't know what this sentence is. I can't ever figure that out.
You wrote it.
Oh, no, she wrote it.
Okay.
I think it has a miss... And I'd choose who he is as a man over hanging on to his purity until our wedding night. And God shows his grace in that every day. Purity isn't everything. Watching porn doesn't make you impure, but it is sin and it's damaging. Why don't y'all say these things? Again, I love y'all and the show. Just something I've noticed in several episodes, and a friend I shared the podcast with actually brought it to my attention as well. Anyway, thanks for what you do. First of all, thank you for pointing this out. This is obviously a blind spot for us. We're not doing this on purpose. It's just, I think when we answer questions, we're so focused on the specific of the question we're trying to answer, like the purity thing. We were focused on talking about purity, and it completely skipped our mind to talk about the damaging effect of pornography. And your comment will absolutely change how we do things in the future, because I think we need to be very explicit and very clear. So thank you for sending it in.
I do like what you said about blind spots, and so my profession, my job as a therapist is to be objective. So if a client comes in and says, hey, this thing, I'm not going to say, what? You did that thing? Oh my goodness, don't you know that is wrong and everything's black and white and you have to do this. I have a different line of questioning than just like, hey, this is wrong, don't do that, you can't. Or, you know what, clients have asked me, hey, what do you think about this? And I push back on that and I say, you know what, it doesn't matter what I think about it, and I know this isn't the answer that you're looking for, because oftentimes clients want a very solid black and white answer. Yeah. This happened a couple weeks ago, in fact. And I said, you know, you might even be mad at me with this, but it doesn't matter what I think, you know. It matters what you think, how you process it. If it's good in your life or if it's bad in your life, what do you want to do? And then that is much of a... it's like that thing, give a man a fish, you know, or teach a man to fish, which is better. Teach a man to fish so they can do it for themselves. Yeah. And the longer lasting effects of realizing something yourself, that's going to last. In therapy, we call that a first order change or a second order change. And one of those is like, oh yeah, I'm all pumped up because my therapist told me not to do this. And then that goes on for a week. But then the other type of change is, my therapist helped me realize that this isn't good, and no, I'm choosing not to do that.
Right, yeah.
So that lasts for years and goes on. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. So as a therapist, I look and think about and process questions really differently. And in my experience, what's up, Lakeisha? Good morning.
You have an obligation to do that. Like, if someone goes to a therapist and they say, I've been looking at pornography, and their therapist goes, oh, don't you know that's foul? Right. It's going to stop them from healing. Right. I had to have a very...
Brittany says, I had the same thoughts as the email, but I assumed your therapy perspective informed the answer. Yes, it does. But just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean that I do that I don't have
feelings on
outside
it
thoughts about it. I just don't share those mostly on the podcast because that's not the goal of the podcast. Although we like to be real, and definitely not in therapy. What's the green drink? It's a green smoothie that Melanie makes.
And if you're listening to the podcast, we're live on Facebook and Instagram. We're answering questions that people are posting, just in case people are wondering, like, what the green drink? Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
I make this drink. I make 12 of them on the week, or 11 or 12 on the weekends, and it is romaine, spinach, lemon, avocado, water, and orange juice. And I drink them, I make 12 of them at a time, or 10 or whatever, and drink them throughout the week every morning. They are my absolute favorite thing. I've made videos. I'll try to share them again. But yeah, it's my favorite drink, evs. So anyway, yes, I think that we, again, had a blind spot there with the podcast and not thinking to explicitly say our views on it and that kind of thing. Because, again, you have an obligation to not make people feel shamed or bad or weird for the things they're trying to process. So that's kind of what we were doing, but again, not intentional or anything. So we do believe that pornography is bad. We believe that it is not okay in a marriage. It's not good. It's not healthy. Whoops. There are what is the word I'm trying to say? There are trains of thought, schools of thought that say there's healthy versions of it. There's all these whatever. And I am of the belief, the Bible says, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. That means you can do anything. Heroin, look at porn, kill someone.
Be sarcastic, be critical,
sarcastic.
Whatever.
Like,
there's a million different versions.
You go ahead and do whatever. Is it all good for you? Absolutely not.
Right.
And I think that especially the way we're wired for intimacy, the way we are wired for monogamy, the way we are wired to love and be seen and known and accepted, I think that pornography and inviting like other people in through pornography is incredibly damaging to something that is central to the soul of who we are as people, and then of course to the spirit of who we are as believers. Like, it talks about this all the time, like, don't do this in your marriage in the Bible. I think we should listen to that advice.
Absolutely. And one thing, I'm glad that you brought up that verse because we can do anything we want, right? And I believe that God gives us the discernment, literally the brains to know of like, hey, is that good or is this bad? Oh, should I keep on doing this? Is this bringing life? Is this bringing death, right? So if we went down the train of do this, do this, do this, do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, then you get into really obviously rigid and black and white thinking. And growing up in the church, I've been in both. Growing up in the South, it's very rigid and very black and white on much more than just religion and church, right? And I've seen where it is absolutely not helpful. So our job isn't to go down the huge list of all this stuff. It's like, so if somebody is saying, yeah, my wife is drinking all the time and just it's out of control and all this stuff, then I'm going to go, okay, obviously there's other stuff there. Drinking is not good for her and it is tearing all this stuff apart. Or if a wife sends in, oh, my husband's looking at porn all the time and all this, like, clearly, okay, that is not good, right? It is not benefiting your marriage. It's permissible, but it's not beneficial. And that can go with my wife nags all the time. My husband demeans me all the time. All of this falls into the categories of it's we can do it all you want. But guess what? You're going to sleep in the bed you make. You're going to sleep in the bed that you make. And is it good for the relationship? Is it good for you? Is it good for your spirit, for your soul, your psyche? Yes or no? That's a very defined answer. You know, like otherwise, like I can ask a client, well, if this was good for you, you wouldn't be sitting here and talking to me right now. You know what I'm saying? So obviously something on your heart or your spirit pulled you in here. It's like, yeah, I got to figure this out. I can't do this anymore, or I just feel stuck or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I know you have a lot of content here. Aaron says, we're human. We have been giving free will. It is up to us to discern what is beneficial and helpful and honest and right for us because, but this could open up a whole other conversation. Yeah, absolutely it could.
One of the things I want to mention is you said we're given free will. If you look up the origin of the word will, it is wish. And what's interesting is that I used to hear the term the will of God. It's the will of God that you like stay monogamous or whatever. That's what God wishes for you. And I think of that from the perspective of a parent.
Yes.
I do not wish upon my child that they like get in a car accident and look at porn and smoke all the time. I wish that they will have a good and happy and healthy life.
Good for them.
Right. And so I think that it's so important that we really think about it in that perspective, if that makes sense. So Was there something else you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. So I have a bunch of bullet points and stuff I want to talk about pornography and what we think about it and what studies have revealed about it and why we think it is important to look critically at this topic. So there's a study out of Australia that I got a bunch of this information from, and it says the negative impacts of looking at pornography include things like encouraging violence, specifically against women. It objectifies others and builds damaging gender stereotypes that create lifelong struggles for those who view it and those who they're in relationship with. So not only does it mess up the person who's looking at it, it messes up the people that they will be in relationship with. It creates very unhealthy sexual practices for the viewers, such as not using contraceptives or protection, right? That is not in pornography. So it is not something that you learn to do. So it creates very unhealthy sexual practices, such as not using protection or not caring at all if the other person is enjoying the interaction. And it is literally teaching the viewer what they should do in a terrible and unhealthy way. Porn is often our only sex education, and it is the worst sex education and sex educator ever. Pornography warps the viewer's idea of what is normal and expected in a sexually intimate moment and creates unattainable Hold on, will you tell the kids to stop hollering in the other room? Our children are playing Fortnite and like shouting in the other room.
What's up, T?
I'll keep on talking. So pornography warps the viewer's idea of what is normal and expected in a sexually intimate moment and creates unattainable expectations for both partners, such as perfect bodies, perfect lighting, ecstatic orgasms, and fake sexual responses. These are paid actors and actresses. They're not in healthy, loving relationships that are mutually respectable, and they're not enjoying themselves. They are paid to pretend that they are. This is not a normal, healthy, good thing. As much as you think it is, these people are pretending and acting, and you are learning to think that that is what's normal and that is what real sex looks like. It is not. The unattainable expectations in pornography create lifelong insecurities for their users and also, unfortunately, for their spouses. From both perspectives. Either their partner doesn't meet the fake pornographic standard, which places undue and unwelcome pressure on them, or the user of pornography doesn't reach the fake pornographic standards that they themselves begin to feel lacking. Both perspectives are highly damaging in a relationship. So there's
I want to put this in there. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Comparison is the thief of a lot of stuff, and I find myself comparing. Like if I see a men's workout magazine or whatever like that has exercises that I can learn and stuff, I can find myself going, oh man, well I don't have a huge chest or a six pack or whatever. Okay, I can work towards that, but then, and there's all this stuff. It's like comparison is the thief of like, hey, I'm healthy, I am in good shape, relatively or comparatively, I guess. And comparison is the thief of joy. So if you are consuming things that just make you compare your life, your sex life, your spouse, your car, your house, your money, anything like that, then you're not going to be content. So along from the other highly researched damaging effects of pornography, there's also this one that's maybe not talked about so much, the comparison factor.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, and then what happens when you get older? You get older, your wife or your husband gets older, and they're not going to look like the people in the magazines or whatever. So then you're going to continue to compare. Then you're going to continue to be perpetually, literally unhappy.
Well, and what happens is that so my very best friend is a pediatrician. She deals with babies up to like 19 years old or whatever, and there's a huge increase in like young men not being able to have orgasm. They can't maintain an erection. Like there's all these erectile dysfunction type things because they are looking at pornography all the time.
Seen in otherwise very healthy males, 24 years and under.
Right.
Are you kidding?
And so what happens is there's a bunch of different things going on at once. One of which that people don't often talk about is that I'm just going to use really broad sweeping terms here. Don't get mad at me. But like if a man is watching pornography all the time, he is going to assume that, and this is something, it socializes you to believe, and this is actually my next point, I'll just read it. It says, pornography shapes your social scripts about genders, such as men just want to have sex all the time, or When women say no, they really mean yes. Or if women play hard to get, it means they really want it. Or it's a man's role to always pursue the woman. So those sexual scripts, if your sexual script in your brain that is put there from pornography says men are horny all the time, all they want to do is have sex, they want to have sex with everybody, and you're not like that, you already, without any other inside influence or input, feel less than a man.
Again, comparison.
Right, yeah, you're comparing yourself to, well, that guy's always like ready to rumble and I'm not.
Yeah.
What's the problem with me?
Or, okay, let's get into real stuff, like even body size, like, whoa, that guy's huge. Or that lady is, you know, I don't know.
Huge.
Huge. Well, I don't know. Then again, then the comparison, it's a obvious visual comparison. Then that gets in your brain. Then you go, oh, well, you go look yourself in the mirror. I'm not like that. I don't do that. This is then, and then just the comparison traps. Comparison is the absolute thief of joy, contentment, gratitude.
Right.
Anything.
And one of the things that comes to mind, I don't know why this analogy or this visual keeps coming to my head. It's as if, so I'm going to draw this analogy. I think it's pretty decent. So the pornography version of sexual intimacy is like the rally car version of driving, right? You see a rally car on the road or like on a racetrack, they are like, and they're, you know, they're like e-braking around the corner, they're drifting, and they're
balls to the wall.
Right, they're balls to the wall, literally, like, and they're like, you know, going 190, and they're flying down the thing, and they're lifting off the ground.
Right.
So if that's all you think that driving is, and you go to driver's ed, and you're like, I don't even know how to shift into second gear, and
I don't even have a rally car. My rally car is tiny and
right. My rally car is tiny and has low gas. If you
Low
think
gas.
that if that is literally the only idea that you have of driving, you will not understand the joy of a leisurely drive on a Sunday,
Right.
with the windows down and warm summer breezes, whatever. You won't want.
You're gonna be driving alone because nobody's gonna ride in the car with you when you're driving 180.
Right. And so just think of that analogy. Like if we literally never learn that sexual intimacy has a plethora of different ways that it happens, the men don't always pursue. There sometimes are women that are higher drive. Lots of times there are women that are higher sex drive that pursue their husbands. But if that is not the script you have in your head, we hear this all the time. And women feel so ashamed and embarrassed to pursue their husband. Why? Because the script that pornography has given us says that is wrong. That's outside of the norm. Don't do it. Only rally drive all the time. Like e-brake, jack brake, all the things all the time, but never drive slowly.
Brake jack.
Whatever, jack brake. I'm calling it jack braking. Anyway, so that's a really important thing to point out. And again, it's so damaging when we think things like only men can pursue women. That in and of itself causes so much marital strife that it's ridiculous. Also, this is a huge factor. I want you to think about this if you have children. Pornography encourages male peer relationships that are accepting of behaviors such as aggression, minimizing, excusing, and rationalizing violence against women. So one of the things that stands out to me as being a very important thing to talk about when we're talking about the pornography conversation is how incredibly damaging. I think most people think, oh, the people who make pornography like it. Because the people who make pornography tell you they like it because they're paid to do that.
Right.
Right? Do you think the person who scrubs your floor loves to scrub your floor? They're paid to do that. They are not going to tell you they hate scrubbing floors if that's how they get paid.
And they may have chosen a totally different occupation, but sometimes they have to. And so I've seen a lot of youth clients before. I've grown up with, kids 8, 9, 10 and see them until they're 18. And I have seen this play out. And trust me, people don't want to be where they are sometimes. And your other point...
well, I'm sorry, you're just like blasting by something I wanted to talk about a lot. So, like, it's a very important thing to understand. People who are participating in pornography, videos that you're buying and looking at online and all of that stuff, a lot of them are abusively forced to be there. They are they have a pimp, kind of.
Right.
I was looking at a website that was talking about, it's like for former pornography stars. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like people who got out of the porn industry who are wanting to educate people about how terrible it is. And a lot of like story after story after story of like, I was beaten on set, and they said if I did not do this horrendous thing that I did not want to do, I would not be paid. Right? So then they say, well, I'm trapped. I'm getting beaten, like literally punched in the head by a man who is saying, you told me you would do this, and they'll switch up the script, and now I have to do this other thing. Women are like, I've been choked, literally thought I was going to die. I've been vomiting I mean, this is not uncommon. So when you're looking at this highly edited, beautiful, whatever, and it's so whatever, these people are being abused. They have trauma. They are getting traumatized for your pleasure. Is that what you want? Like, these people also are sisters, daughters, granddaughters, they're friends. Like, they're human. They're real people. So I want to
also
make
sons
you
and brothers and stuff too.
absolutely,
There's
yes,
tons of
not just
stories
the
about, like,
not just the women.
Men who don't want to be there either.
Exactly. And so I want to encourage you, disgust yourself by how much you know about this idea. Like, disgust yourself that you're like, oh, would I want my sister to be treated like that? Absolutely not. Would you want your daughter to be treated like that? Absolutely not. Make yourself sick with it. That is the best advice that I could give you. Make yourself sick with it. The next point that I have was pornography trains the users. Oh wait, that didn't finish that one.
Go to the next one. It increases marital infidelity by 300%. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I know obviously it's not good. It doesn't support a healthy, enriching marriage, but increases marital fidelity by, well,
Infidelity.
Yeah, I guess infidelity. I guess they got that statistic of folks who were going through a separation or divorce. You know, what was one of the main problems? Either like money or other people or whatever. 88% of pornographic scenes depict violence and aggression.
Which
We kinda
again,
talked about that.
if this is your sex educator, if this is your sex ed class, is harmful, violent, aggressive, like very, very damaging sexual behaviors, and this is what you're learning. You're not just seeing it, you're learning it. More is caught than taught.
Yeah, and like what you were saying, the industry is directly linked to drug abuse on set, child exploitation, and human trafficking. And that's what I was going to say, like for young clients that I've had who I've seen grow up and stuff, they sometimes end up in those situations. And trust me, if you know someone from a
Are you saying that you've had like clients that have done pornography? What are you saying?
No, I'm not
very
saying
clear
that.
what you're
I'm
saying.
saying like into different situations where they don't want to be. I guess I don't want to get too specific, but how about this? I've seen firsthand child exploitation and human trafficking and the effects of that, right? And nobody who's exploited or trafficked are voting to be there.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And usually they cope with the abuse, cope with the trauma with drugs and alcohol, and then they become dependent on that, and then that's just downward spiral, and it's not a good thing. Absolutely.
And that to me is one of the most important things to help you if you're struggling with porn addiction or whatever, make it disgusting to yourself. The connection that you're longing for by looking at pornography is not disgusting. The connection that you're longing for.
The connection piece. The connection and pleasure with another human that is your spouse.
Right. And as I was looking up information for this episode, I came across a website called fightthenewdrug.org, I think. And basically, it's like, have you ever seen the shirts that say, like, porn kills love? Have you ever seen those t-shirts? So I think the people who created that, it's an excellent website. I will share it on our Facebook page and everything. But they have the whole sort of the breakdown of what it does to the individuals, like to your brain, to your heart, and then to our world, because it deeply, deeply impacts our world. Like, no joke, for pornography, people are stealing children. Like, go listen to like a podcast about this. It's horrendous what happens to people. Like, they get forced into these sexual situations over and over and over again. They are traumatized unbelievably, but you're watching it for enjoyment.
Somebody says, make it disgusting. Don't shame yourself. We are all able to rise above and dig out any nasty addictions and behavior. That is absolutely true. And oftentimes there is a shame cycle associated with any kind of addiction, especially pornography addiction. And so if you are struggling with this and you're like, yeah, I know, Melanie, I know, Seth, I don't want to do this anymore, but you find yourself going back to it, then reach out to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage, where you can hook up legitimately get with a licensed counselor who is a professional. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I could be on that site and do therapy, right? And you will get hooked up with someone very specific. You can handpick who you want to engage with as your therapist.
And what you're struggling with.
And what you're struggling with, right? Dot, 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 all this stuff. They will pair you with a therapist who's like, dude, I have a decade of experience with that. Let me help you, right? So go to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage to take advantage of this resource. That helps us out, and more so, it'll help you out. It's private, it's confidential, and it works, guys. It absolutely works. Somebody says, how do you promote a sex-positive mindset with young boys without the use of porn? I find that a lot of the issues with anti-porn rhetoric is that it lumps sex as also being a bad thing. Yes.
So there is, I have to figure out if I can find this, but the co-creator of our app, the Get Your Marriage On app, Daniel Purcell is his name. He recently, I think he did a virtual summit. He was a part of a virtual summit where he talked about sex positivity and males, because it is not talked about almost at all. And I think that's a fascinating idea. You really don't think about it, especially in the church. All they really teach is sex is bad, don't look at porn, don't get someone pregnant, right? And then they're not really teaching us healthy positivity.
Right. I'm going to reframe it. So you said, how do you do a sex positive mindset with young boys without the use of porn? So I'm going to ask you this: how do you breathe without smoking? Right? How do you breathe without? How do you teach somebody about your lungs and your diaphragm and the importance of breathing in air
without cigars?
Without cigars, right? Well, you do it without cigars, right?
Yeah.
You talk about it. You say, okay, this is fresh air, and I'm going to be like overly dramatic here, but I think it'll get the point across. This is fresh air. You go outside, see those beautiful trees out there that God made? Those help us breathe, right? And that could be an analogy. Like, see these physical like desires that you have. You know what? God made you a wife, or God made you a husband out there somewhere, okay? So we're going to talk about the biological piece. You know, there's absolutely no shame in you needing to get fresh air into your lungs, okay? And you can absolutely do it without a cigar or smoking, right? So that is not pornography.
Not
It's
necessary.
absolutely not a sex educator. Well, it is, but it is
not the one you want.
bad teacher.
Right.
If that analogy made sense.
It's great. That's a perfect analogy. I like that. So one of the things I'm reading right now is Sex, God, and the Conservative Church by Dr. Tina Schermer Sellers. It is a textbook for master's level therapists, and it's amazing. You can get it on Amazon right now, but one of the things that she talks about is instead of having the sex talk, like one time, you have what she calls 100 one-minute conversations. And oftentimes your children, I don't know how old your kids are for the person asking this question, but your kids will reveal to you when they're ready to talk about certain things, because they don't know that those certain things are off limits, right? I mean, off limits in air quotes. So like for example, this is going to sound so weird, but y'all, it's the truth. We have a back massager that our kids found. Like, it's a big thing that massages your back, right? And then the kids would be like, playing around with it, and then they'd put it like on their crotch, and they'd be like, that feels great. And that is a 1-minute conversation opportunity right there, where you tell them, that feels great because your body is designed for pleasure, right? Sounds really weird, sounds super uncomfortable, do it anyway, because otherwise pornography will take the place of that 1-minute conversation that you could have had when your kid was touching themselves.
That's right.
Right? And we can't put our shame and fear and uncomfortable sort of feelings and discomfort onto them, because they don't have that yet. So there's a part of sex education for your children that comes from you having to reframe your own personal experience with stuff, but
you have to deal with it. Deal it before you teach it. Deal with it before you teach it.
Right. And so it is very challenging to do, but it's very much worth your time and effort to think through how to do that well. Another thing is reading together. Like, we have, if your kids are littler, we have body books like Amazing You, which Dr. Gail Saltz wrote. We interviewed her in season 2. But Amazing You is a body book. It literally talks about the body parts and the penis
Amazing
and the
You.
vagina
It's a
and the
good book.
vulva and the uterus
Devin?
and like, hey Devin, and and so it talks about
The uterus. Oh, Devin, what's up?
What's up? So it talks about the body in a way that's not shaming, it's not sexual. And again, I want to remind you, if you have small children, they do not have in their mind any understanding of sexually explicit thoughts, ideas. If they say words that to you mean something and don't mean something to them, do not freak out, don't get upset. That is not helpful. They will never learn, right? Or they will learn that bodies are shameful, that bodies and talking about them is bad, so don't do it. And it's just very important to not shame them for things that are in your brain and not in theirs.
Right. So let's see. I think that's it for
No, it's not.
today.
I have a bunch of other things I'm going to say.
No?
So another thing that I really want to say specifically around boys and teaching boys about their bodies and positive, healthy sexuality is that I don't know if we talked about this lately, but this idea that Dr. Tina Shermer Sellers said when I was at a conference with her, where she said that boys are typically taken off of parents' laps at like age 7. So by the time when a kid is around 7, they're getting kind of bigger, and they're like, "Oh, don't sit on my lap." That's not what boys do. Like, boys are strong and they're whatever. So what happens inadvertently, on accident, we don't mean to do it, is that we never give our younger sons physical affection that is just loving, right? We do this all the time. We touch our kids constantly. Like, we kiss them. We make sure that they know what appropriate, loving, healthy touch is. Because when you don't give that to your sons in particular, and then nobody touches them until they're 17, and then the only touch they get when they're 17 is sexual touch,
Then
that has messed them
they go
up for
ballistic,
true.
right? And maybe some of the guys can relate to that. Because it's the thing.
Right, like no one has held my hand or given me a hug or just sat with me and laid there just because they love me for 10 or 7 years. And then all of a sudden, the only physical affection you get is sexual touch. That is super hard for a young person to understand what to do with.
For a girl, too.
Yes.
And, I've had clients who are just absolutely boy crazy, and also male clients who were just absolutely girl crazy. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, and they're looking for something that they didn't get often. And a really important factor to put into this whole conversation is that we are showing our children what type of behavior is expected. Or let me say that again. How my parents treated me is how I will look for my future spouse to treat me. So if my parents said I was an idiot, you're too stupid for anything, you're never going to go to college, I'm going to look for a person who treats me the same way because that's what I know. We go to what we know.
Subconsciously, you're not going to be like, hey, whoever calls me an idiot, I'm going to, jump into bed with or anything like that. You're going to look for that. You're not looking for someone to call you an idiot, but you're not looking for someone to
say you're
respect
smart
you and lift you up.
Right.
And and if they do that, you'll be like, oh, this feels weird. This isn't what I know.
We go to what we know.
Right.
So if we are used to being treated in an objectifying way, if we're used to being ignored, if we're used to being yelled at, we will find that in another person, even if we think we don't like it. We will find it and seek it out and become that way in relationships. And why this is important to this overall healthy sexuality pornography conversation is that this is something that we need to teach on purpose, teach our children how to look for suitable interactions on purpose, and that includes around sexuality. It is not okay. So more is caught than taught. If you have 100 one-minute conversations with your kid about sexuality, you can tell them things like, no one is ever allowed to force you to do anything that you don't want to do, whether that's like steal something or touch them somewhere. If you don't have that conversation, they're not going to learn it on their own. They're going to be coerced by someone who is bad and not know the difference, right? If you teach respect to your children and healthy sexual respect.
Ooh, if you teach respect, then you will have people around you that seek respect.
Yeah, I mean, you won't allow disrespectful people into your child's life, into your life. You won't allow it. And you will teach it, so then your kid is not going to seek a disrespectful, harmful person. And that has to do with all sorts of things. Let's see. How do you correct that issue with a husband that isn't aware he was missing that affection as a child of 7 or 12 or whatever age? I, again, say get counseling. Go to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage. We partnered with them because we believe in them and we trust them. So just listening to a podcast is not enough.
Right.
Just having the information is not enough. Just knowing about it is not enough.
And also thinking, how do I get someone who is not me to do something?
Right.
that's hard. Let's just like I was saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, kind of thing. And sure, you can encourage and help facilitate, but the decision for them to do something, yes or no, is theirs and theirs alone. So yeah, getfaithful.com/anatomy marriage to get hooked up with a licensed professional psychotherapist.
But I will say you can have you can do sort of conversation starter style questions that invite a new way of thinking, not a you're doing this wrong, you missed this, you're bad, you're dumb, you're lacking, but what do you think about whatever? And I would highly suggest read Sex, God, and the Conservative Church by Dr. Tina Schermer Sellers. It will give you the framework to think of these things differently. But inviting a new opportunity is the way that it's presented in marketing. Like, like what would it look like if, I don't know. There's lots of
It's like Dave Ramsey talks about, because he gets callers all the time, hey, I'm on board with the debt-free thing, but my spouse is not. How do I get them to do this? And he talks about, don't turn my name into a cuss word within the household, right? So what he's saying there is, I can't get Melanie, if I'm on fire for something, then I can't get her to like, hey, you have the same enthusiasm that I have. I can invite her, I can model the behavior, and I can show her the results of if I wanted to get, like 75 hard, right? I said, I am doing this. I fully, absolutely committed, and you even pushed back, and I was like,
I hated it. Yeah,
I'm not asking you to do it. You don't have to do it. I am doing it, right? Oh, now guess what? After I completed it, she started it. Did I say, hey, you should do this? Blah, blah, blah. I said, hey, it's been super helpful for me, and I saw
the evidence of that.
She saw the evidence, saw the actions, physical, my body, and then also more so than my body, the emotional, the psychological, the mindset that it changed. So, my actions invited her. So I would encourage this listener to, whatever your actions are, hey, I thought about going to a counselor just because, sometimes I need to talk about these things or process these things. Hey, I'm reading this book because I'm interested in it, and it's going to shed some light on some things that, I processed when I was little or whatever,
And
go ahead.
Well, I think what is important too is that just the example of our podcast, like you and I talk about things outside of a context of trying to solve them in our own marriage. We just talk about things. We have a topic like pornography. We just talk about it. We're not talking about it because you're dealing with it, I'm struggling with it. Well, we're talking about it because we are growing and learning about one another. So I would highly encourage, just talk about these things outside of the context of trying to solve them, outside of the context of being in the middle of a battle with them. Does that make sense? Like, you literally take this episode and say, this is a conversation that I would like to talk. Look, our kids just wrote a sign. Are you done yet? Yes? No? What does the other one say? Yes or no?
That's probably backwards.
Right. No, we're not done yet. So one of the things that I want to encourage is like doing the conversation starters in our app. Making conversation starters out of this. Like you could literally, actually, let's think of 5 conversation starters around pornography that people could talk about that are not accosting, they're not accusing, they're not inflammatory. So like you could literally ask your spouse, how do you think pornography has harmed your view of sex or intimacy? And ask that to one another.
Or maybe, so that's assuming something that maybe they have seen it before, which statistically everyone has. So I don't want to have that be an argument. What if you said, hey, how do you think the depiction of
or what do you think
men
the
and
impact
women
of
the impact or something? So make it not really anything having to do with you. Like how do you think, especially if we have kids, I'm worried about like the culture and the movies and stuff like that. How do you think that might impact our kids' lives? You better scram.
Hey, how do you gotta go away? Thank you. So how would you word that? What do you think the impact of pornography is on our lives, or what?
On people's view of relationships. And you'll say people's view, not your view. So I want you to like throw it out there and put it kind of not ambiguous to shy away from anything, but just in a way that doesn't cause an argument, if that makes sense. You could use the same line of questioning around money, like how did you grow up? What did your parents teach you about money? Or you could say this: what did your parents teach you about sex and intimacy? Or how did you learn? How about this? How did you learn about sex and intimacy like that? Does that make sense? And that's again a more non-confrontive things. We don't want to be, well, sure, there's times to be confronting and like, listen, I'm calling you out on this kind of thing,
Right.
but I don't want to start conversations like that with you or I,
Right.
and especially not with
Right.
listeners.
Again, this is just a conversation. It's not an
Right.
accusation. It's not in relationship to a tension point or anything. It's literally just talk about it. What other questions could we have people ask one another to open this conversation up? Or how about this? Has pornography given you unreal expectations of what sex and intimacy should look like in our marriage?
Yeah.
I'm writing these down as we talk.
Or you could say, when you were younger, what kind of things did you learn, and how is that unrealistic in our marriage today? And so that would be fairly easy. Oh yeah, well it is like you said. Well, it's all about the man, and every woman wants it, and this is how you do stuff, and kind of thing.
Right. How about this one? What do you wish you could unlearn from pornography?
That's a good one.
How about that? That's a good one.
Okay, so we're gonna put these questions somewhere, maybe in the show notes, and you guys, if this is an issue, or if other things are an issue for you, we absolutely encourage you to go to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage. Again, you'll get hooked up with a licensed professional counselor, and everything's confidential. Everything is confidential. We don't know. We don't have any information who goes there or not. We just get different stats on stuff, but it's totally
Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Yeah.
We don't know, right? So don't let that stop.
And
you
these
from
are
going.
real therapists. They're HIPAA compliant. It's teletherapy. You can do video therapy, text therapy, phone call therapy. And I want to really encourage you, like, when we used to go to marriage counseling forever ago, when we were going through our hardest things, we would literally have to make it like our date night, which was the worst because we had to get a babysitter. We had to spend all the time to drive to the place. It was so crappy. It made a crappy
it was
situation way worse. So I really encourage you. This getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage is an awesome way to begin your healing journey. No joke. Go visit the website.
Absolutely.
And if you have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, please send them in to hello@anatomyofmarriage.com. And again, or, DM us stuff on Facebook, whatever. But we really thank the person who sent this question in. It is amazing that this listener had the thought and the care to say, hey, you guys are doing great stuff, but I'm a little bit confused by this thing. We always appreciate feedback, so thank you so much.
Right, so thank you for joining us too on a Saturday. We're going to end with one conversation starters from the app, Get Your Marriage On. And this is in the Just for Fun category.
Okay.
Are you afraid of any places in the world?
Not really. Well, I mean, I guess I'm afraid of the Middle East, if I'm honest, like where there's wars.
Right.
Or like anywhere where there's a war, which there's wars all over the world, not just the Middle East.
Right.
But I'm afraid of any place where there's like active guns happening.
Yeah, or threat of getting kidnapped or abducted or stuff like that. And I think, I would go anywhere and...
Yeah, I would go anywhere. If it was like the safe part of town, like I would go anywhere.
Well, sometimes Russia might be scary.
Listen to that, 1980s.
Russia.
Rocky.
Oh yeah, the Cold War stuff.
Right.
So that's funny. We talked about this last night because I went to Dubai a couple of years ago, and it's probably it's literally like the second safest country in the world.
In the whole world.
United Arab Emirates are, but I am literally right next door to Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen. And across the Persian Gulf, which I swam in, by the way, which is awesome, is Iran.
Yeah.
Right? And there are people in those countries who...
I want to go to Ijog. I made myself laugh.
Nice. People in those countries who want to abduct and hurt Americans, right? So that's the only thing that I would be afraid of.
Want to hear was
I guess.
When we went... hey, you guys! No, thank you! When we went to Morocco, this is a very funny story. We went all over Europe for a wedding. And we went to Morocco as part of our thing. And when we were in Spain, before we went to Morocco, legitimately, a man at a wedding told me, they love redheads there. If they joke about trading you for a camel, don't say yes. And I was like, what? And he goes, really? They will say to you, I will trade your wife for 10 camels. Don't say yes, they're serious. And I'm like, is this real? So I don't know if it was real or if it was a horrendous,
Oh, wait a minute. Is June 21st coming up?
What are you talking
2020?
about?
That's what he said.
What are you talking about?
I traded you for 10 camels on
Oh my
June
gosh.
21st, 2020.
Oh my gosh, you're so weird. But I don't know if it was just like a horrific racial thing that happened, like a racist,
Right.
like this is what I believe about those people. But it was the weirdest experience ever. So then I legitimately was like, okay, if someone says they'll trade me for a camel, I gotta keep my guard up.
Yeah.
Like,
But yeah, so that's
so
a good question.
weird.
Maybe there are other places that have spiders that you don't want to go to. But
oh
anyway,
yeah,
the
for
point,
true. I guess that was it.
hold on,
I don't
so
like
the point is,
spiders.
go get the Get Your Marriage On app and do conversation starters. It is super, super fun.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys for joining us on Saturday. We have neglected our kids long enough, and they're probably going to be in trouble now, but we have to be graceful because we forced their hand. So
That's right.
love you guys. Go to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage to get help. We love you. Bye.
Have an amazing day. Bye.